Let's do a quick history of the US dollar from its early beginnings up until today. This will be a simplified overview, so let's get right into the timeline. So, starting way before 1792, back in the days of the American colonies, there was no US dollar. People just used whatever money they had, so they used mostly foreign currencies like the Spanish dollar, which was called the piece of eight. They used British pounds and also Dutch coins. But obviously this was confusing and inconvenient. So once the United States started to form, they needed their own currency. And in 1792, the U.S. Congress passed the Coinage Act. And this act created the U.S. Mint, and it officially established the dollar as the official currency of the United States. Now, at first, the value of the dollar was based on both silver and gold. So this is called a bimetallic standard. And the first U.S. coins were struck in 1794. These were silver dollars. It took 10 years to actually create these coins. They also minted a copper 1-cent coin and a gold half-eagle. Then, in the 1800s, we have a few key dates. In 1836, there was a gold rush discovered in Georgia. Then, later on, more gold was found in California. And this really boosted U.S. coinage. And this is because gold is more durable than silver. So now, instead of just having a silver dollar, the gold rush enabled them to switch over to a gold standard. And this made the dollar more valuable because now it was always linked to the price of gold. And this was good for the economy. It limited the amount of money the government could print. Then, in 1861, the U.S. started its first paper money. This was during the Civil War. And this type of paper money was called greenbacks. The greenbacks were not backed by gold or silver. Instead, they were only backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. So they were essentially a fiat currency, meaning that their value was based on the trust in the government, not on a commodity such as gold. But greenbacks were only accepted in the United States. Then, in the 1870s, the U.S. resumed the gold standard. So they went back to backing their currency with gold. Then we have the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. This act created the Central Bank of the United States, which we know today as the Fed, and this is the institution that regulates our banking system. The Fed also introduced a new type of paper money. These were called Federal Reserve notes. And this is essentially the modern U.S. paper money that we use today. Then, in 1933, President Roosevelt took the United States off the domestic gold standard. This was during the Great Depression. People could no longer exchange their paper money for gold. Private ownership of gold was also restricted, and all gold coins and gold certificates were turned into the Treasury. This meant that the dollar was now a fiat currency, meaning that it was not backed by any commodity such as gold. Then in 1944, at the Bretton Woods Agreement, the USD became the world's reserve currency. At this time, other major currencies such as the pound sterling and the euro were pegged to the US dollar, which was in turn pegged to gold. So, at this point, all these currencies were indirectly linked to gold. 1 ounce of gold equaled 35 US dollars. Then in 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the direct convertibility of the US dollar to gold. He ended the Bretton Woods system. This is what's known as the Nixon shock. As a result of this, the US dollar became a fiat currency. It was no longer linked to gold. Instead, its value was now based on the trust in the U.S. government. However, the U.S. dollar remained the dominant global currency. In the following decades, the U.S. dollar continued to play a major role in the world. Yes, it faced some challenges. In the 1970s and 80s, there were major inflation and oil crises. But the U.S. dollar still remains as the main reserve and trade currency. It is especially important for commodities such as oil, gold, and other natural resources. And this is because these commodities are often priced and traded in U.S. dollars. And then, after the year 2000, the U.S. dollar became even more important. This is due to globalization. There was an increase in foreign investments and cross-border transactions, and also the growth of the global financial markets contributed to the dominance of the U.S. dollar. Then, in 2008, during the global financial crisis, the US dollar strengthened even more. This is because investors all around the world viewed the dollar as a safe haven. They exchanged their currencies for dollars, and this increased the demand for the US dollar. Now, even though the US dollar is very strong, there are some challenges in the 2020s. There is a growing amount of US debt. Also, there is high inflation. These factors raise questions about the future strength of the US dollar. Some countries such as China, Russia, and other BRICS nations, they are seeking alternatives to the US dollar. They want to reduce their dependence on the dollar. They are pushing for de-dollarization, so they are exchanging their dollars for other currencies, for gold and other assets. But even though there are some challenges, at this moment, the US dollar still remains the most powerful currency in the world. In a recent survey by the Bank of International Settlements, 88% of all foreign exchange trades were done in US dollars, and around 60% of all global foreign reserves are held in US dollars. The US dollar started out as a coin backed by gold and silver. Then it evolved into a paper currency backed by gold. In 1971, it became a fiat currency, meaning that its value is now based on the trust in the U.S. government. And today, it is the most powerful and the most widely used currency in the world. If you want to learn more about the US dollar, check out these videos here. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.